Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. What can be seen may not be always true. The recent events around India's neighborhood proves that very, very clearly. The next thing that we all see is China being a superpower. Is it really true or not? I have Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar here to analyze that. Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, PVSM, AVSM, BSM, a retired Director General of the Artillery, a strategic thinker, a writer who's been writing quite a bit on China. It is important for us to understand a holistic picture, and I think he's contributed quite a bit in this particular direction. Thank you, sir, for joining me for this very, very interesting discussion.
Thanks a lot, Adi. I think it's a very contemporary discussion and a necessary discussion because in times to come, China is going to be one of our main competitors, and we need to understand what China will be in future. We'll start.
Yes, sir. Sir, the demography of China is something that we've spoken about before. We've spoken about the factor that 1 in 6 people or 1 in 7 people are crossing the age of 65 by about 2022. On to counter that, they have put in a three-child policy. Now, the logic of any system like this would state that it would take at least 2 decades for this damn thing to come into effect and get the Chinese back into some sort of a semblance of a demography. Till then, what happens?
See, before I talk of the demography, let me preempt the issue by saying that when the virus broke last year, and China was the only country which had recovered and was doing well when others were all crippled. Its economy was booming. Everything was going gung ho. It was assertive. Everyone said, "Look, China will be the next superpower." But once uh, you know the census results got declassified, right? Something has come out of China. In fact, even some people say even the census figures of China were overblown. And then the virus has taken a different turn. Then the economies have taken a different turn, and China's economy started, uh, getting going slow. Then a few other things have happened. All these put together, analysts are now saying that China has peaked, and that China might not be superpower the way we think it is. It's an economic superpower, but it might not be the superpower we think it is. I mean, let me also say that if it is not a superpower, what will it be? It will be a normal power. It will continue to be an economic power, but it will not collapse. It will continue to be troublesome and XYZ, but not a superpower. Now, if it's not a superpower, India has to deal differently with it. Okay. Now, what are the major issues which we have to handle and assess whether it's a superpower or not? One is demography, right? The second is its economy, obviously. The third is the virus situation, and the fourth is a whole strain of other events which have happened in China, which we'll discuss. But now let me talk to you about the Chinese demography. See, as you said, 1 in 7 Chinese is over 65, which actually puts China into the aged population group. That's China's population is aging. Right. There are three factors to this, three issues in this business of demography. One, the number of people who are aging is going up. The number of people who are being born is reducing. The births have been some of the lowest in recent times. The number of people marrying is also reducing. The result is that in the middle, the workforce is also reducing. You need a very young force in a growing population if you have to propel your national aspirations, drive economic growth, equip and man a modern military. If you look at USA and in the 19th century, 19th, 20th century, USA, Germany, Japan, they had this demographic tailwind behind them. But now it's the other way around, as you pointed out. China's population is shrinking and aging faster than any other country in the history of mankind. Just to put it in perspective, the demographic transition, which took 146 or 126 years in France, 46 years in UK, 40 years in Germany, and 4 years in Japan, is happening in 21 years in China. Right. Now, what is the thing? You can't tide over the old age crisis, they'll be there. You can't tide over the young people because they're not being born. Okay, like you said, it will take another 2 decades for their thing to come. Now, even if you want a 3-child policy, right, which means that if you want a woman to have 3 children, she has to get off the workforce. That means you're shrinking the workforce. So all these policies, everything, are the result of that 1-child policy long back. Right? It is irreversible. Okay. Now, when you have the population overall is estimated to shrink. In fact, some people feel that it has shrunk already. A lower population means consumption is lower, labor force decreases, cost of labor increases, and your economy starts getting hit. Right? And there are a lot of other penalties. Okay. In fact, the PLA has reduced its medical standard to recruit people.
Yeah.
Important. Now, it is not my individual view to say that China has peaked and it is reducing. Major platforms like the South China Morning Post, National Interest, Nikkei Asia, and Bloomberg, and more, New York Times, and across the board, left, right, center, have all assessed that the Chinese demography has peaked, it is going to reduce, and as this has happened, China itself has peaked and it is going to go into decline hereafter. Right? And this decline will be economic, it will be political, social, technological, and development, and it will be a great penalty. I hope I put it in the correct perspective.
That's very interesting. Actually, you've mentioned one very pertinent point, saying the factor that when a woman has to be expected to give a birth 3 times during her life, that's at least 3.5 to 4 years of her life which is not going to be in productive force, and that is reducing the manpower availability. It's going to increase the costing of the labor, which is the prime factor of the Chinese economy. As a matter of fact, they talk about a development, their development on manufacturing. So if they don't have the labor, which they so proudly say that we've got the cheapest labor in the whole world, what are they going to do? It's a very important point that we must understand.
There's a major problem, and this is not going to be solved. I mean, there is no solution to this. They can talk what they want. They can increase retirement ages. They can decrease, say, 3-child policy. Children are a very costly proposition in China as of today. So I don't think I'm off the mark. Some people will say they'll offset it technologically, but that we'll see.
Yeah, it'll take. I mean, that also is not immediate. It takes time.
No, I have my own views on the technology, so we'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about this, sir. So, as a matter of fact, we mentioned one very interesting point sometime back when we were discussing China, and we also mentioned that how long will China stay closed? In spite of it being closed, the virus has trickled through. The Delta variant, which they laughed at us before during the second wave in India, they were mocking us by putting these pictures of various things. As a matter of fact, they put an elephant on a drip to humiliate us in front of the world. Now they're getting a taste of their own medicine. The havoc that one sees within whatever reports are coming out is about 30-40 cities are, large districts are on the lock. They've got a huge crisis. Now, how do you speculate the internal politics of China playing across? Because they had declared a victory over the virus within their own writings, across the world. How do you think this whole thing will be playing out on the psyche of the leadership?
See, before that, let's see the effect it has. This new Delta variant has a transmissibility of more than 5.
Yeah.
Right? Now, China had, a pattern. Mass testing, mass isolation, mass tracing. Right? That was it. And then plus they touted their vaccines. They have It is said that they've given 1.7 billion doses, but they don't have confidence in their themselves and their doses, right? So they have a zero COVID policy of lockdowns, travel curbs, and all that. That's not worked with the Delta. So what have they done? Many of their scientists have said, let's start living with the virus because this virus is going to be endemic. Other societies have learned to live with it. They've had their losses, they cut their losses. Now will start looking forward. Other societies have better vaccines, so they're economically they're going to move ahead. Now China is in a problem. They're politically they had touted victory. Since they had touted victory to their own masses, they don't have any other policy. The vaccines are weak. They can't get vaccines from outside. That will be a political defeat. They can't afford to relax because if see another thing, genealogically, the Chinese are vulnerable to this vaccine.
Yeah.
Sorry, to the virus.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if this virus goes loose, forget the elephant being on a drip, all the dragons in China will be on a drip. Okay. And that lady Xi Zhengli, who is supposed to be the Batwoman of China, she said there are more variants to come. And if she says so, I believe her. Now, how is China going to handle that? So, politically, the low efficacy of this vaccines and their zero COVID policy is politically going to be costly. Now, the second thing is economically also it's going to be costly. You keep people locked down, it's going to hit you economically.
Yeah.
It hits us economically, isn't it? Same thing, whether people die or not, it's going. And other day I saw a picture where, in some city, they're hammering iron bars across houses. Right? So, and then people are coming around to the view that the Chinese approach is poor. They've gone into the law of diminishing returns. Let me tell you, this I had foreseen. I've written earlier that, despite all this advertised story, China was always vulnerable to its virus. This virus is very well established in its mother's womb, that the Chinese virus, and they're going to affect them. So this is going to have political costs. People get fed up. How long will you keep up? Haven't you seen it here in India? There's going to be, then the poor vaccines also raise a question of technology, which we spoke earlier. See, Chinese technology is two-toned. Some technology is great and some technology is, वो बोलते हैं ना, China का माल चल गया तो चांद तक, नहीं तो खत्म. So that's something like that. So the demography is declining and the virus is going to hit their economy. And of course, there are other factors also which we can discuss.
Interesting. Last year when the standoff happened, India went ahead and banned these apps. After a lot of reading, one realized that these app ban that was done by India created a lot of havoc within the financial market of China, which was not declared by China openly. The leadership also realized that they were vulnerable to these tech companies because if anybody hits them, the entire stability of the government actually comes into question. Now what we see is a destruction of these tech companies in China, which is something that amazes me. They've built up these companies, they've made them top of the world, and now they're destroying them. Why do you think they're doing that?
See, again, you look at it. China had developed a capitalist economy, right? But with an authoritarian tinge and a communist overtone. This became the, cynosure of all eyes and international envy. It propelled their GDP, it lifted millions out of poverty, and it also funded their greatest, in fact, I call it the greatest military build-up in the past 1 century.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what has given them superpower dreams. But then there are problems. What has happened is many people became very rich, a lot of them remained poor. For example, healthcare. Now, healthcare was very good along the coastal systems, and their healthcare is not great. It's all privatized healthcare. So the rurals and the village folk were suffering. They were being fleeced, overprescribed. I mean, we have seen this. The tech wave also has to be seen in the same way. The tech wave generated a lot of data, and that data was being captured by them. And data is power.
Mhm.
Just like people are power, data is also power for the Chinese. The strong inequities means the people will get fed up. Data concentrated in the hands of a few, that too in the private hands, is not acceptable to the Chinese,
Mm.
right? And then, so in China, there can be only one boss, the Chinese Communist Party. So they've started destroying. Let me say something, and we can take it forward. You see, in my view, the Chinese Communist Party is prepared to be in power of a China, which is not a superpower, rather than being out of power in attempting to make China a superpower.
Okay. Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So it's a revisionist system. The
Mm.
moment they felt that the tech companies are getting too big, they started destroying. Now, which are the tech companies? I'll just read out a few. Which are the ones? Evergrande, uh, real estate, Tencent, Alibaba, Huarong. Huarong is a bank, finance company. Didi, it's something like equivalent of or Ola and
Uber.
Uber. Pinduoduo, Gauto Tech Education, uh, Tal Education, Archegos, Capital Management, New Oriental, NetEase, Meituans. These are all icons. By any analysis, over $1 trillion have been market capitalization been washed off. Now there is a theory which I read the other day, which says that China has cut its nose to spite America's face. Okay, it believes that all this money, since these companies were listed in the
Yes.
New York Stock Exchange or Wall Street, right? Uh, Americans have lost the money, and it's not Chinese. This is also theory which is coming out. But look at it from another way. This is the Chinese economy. These are the firms which created wealth for the Chinese. It created influence. It created jobs. It created power. It went all over the world, and they were, people had invested in it. Now that's gone, people won't invest in China. Their economy is taking a hit. Where do jobs go? Where does everything go? And now we are talking at a time when there's a job crisis in China. The South China Morning Post last year carried a series of 5 articles on jobs or lack of jobs in China. This has continued. Even this year, they've come out with the same series, almost same statistics. So that there's a job crisis. Now, in such a time, if your workforce is decreasing, your virus is keeping you isolated, and you're breaking your tech companies, where will your economy grow? Okay. Like I said earlier, you are encouraging 2 to 3 children. Everyone should have 3 children. If you don't have a job, how will you have 3 children? If you have 3 children, how will you work? No, it is a spiral. They're caught in their own thing.
Games. Yeah.
So the net economy effect on the economy is going to go down. And these are all one fine morning decisions. One fine morning I take this decision. It's something like that, right? And this is going to have consequences. A lot of it will be hidden. The Chinese will hide.
Yeah.
But if you look beyond this, just to exercise better political control, all these guys are being wiped off. It's happened with the Jimmy Lai, who's media mogul in Hong Kong.
Apple Daily.
Apple Daily. So many of them, so many. And if all this is going to have its effect, you might not know it now, but 1 year, 2 years down the line, it's going to show up. Right? So, of course, there are other. You want to discuss the other economic issues?
As a matter of fact, yes, one of the bottom lines that you mentioned here, which comes out, glaringly on the face, is that they are kind of destroying, their wealth to be in power rather than be in power of, not be in a power, be in power of a China, which is going to be a superpower. So it's basically a battle of keeping their seats. Apart from that, sir, one of the biggest things that happened in China is the natural disasters that are taking place. As a matter of fact, some of them mentioned that this is the worst rainfall in 1,000 years. Now, when you hear, figures like that, everybody talks about this, the biggest rainfall in a decade or a century. Here they are talking about a millennia. So, it's not something that needs to be, brushed under the carpet. The amount of loss that they have taken across, which is being declared, is huge. And on top of that, they are destroying their own infrastructure that they boast about, which is the dams and so on and so forth,
Yeah,
to save certain things. This all also will contribute into the downturn of the economy as well, sir. How would
yeah.
you like
What
to
is it?
see this?
Yeah, see, this is their development model.
Hmm.
They develop cities which are not sustainable. One flood and they are down. They made dams to control floods, which they can't control, so they're bursting dams. I mean, the reason why they did it, it's being undone. Okay, they've got a zero COVID policy which they cannot sustain. Their vaccine diplomacy is failing. They're being blamed for the virus. Okay, so their plus their mega dream, BRI, super, what's that, CPC, they're in trouble.
CP.
And there's a huge debt bubble. All this is going to are at cross purposes with each other, right? So there's a problem. Last year when the virus occurred, everyone said there'll be decoupling, decoupling, decoupling. But over a period of time, people have said no, decoupling is not there. It's not happening. But I read the other day a detailed report in a by a foreign journalist in uh, uh, in a daily called Arabian Business. He says there are a lot of exodus from China. I mean,
Yes.
with figures it's given, right? Because firms are hedging their bets. If I had 100% market, my factory was sourcing 100% from China. Today I say no, I'll keep 75% from China and 25 from others. So I'm hedging my bets.
Hmm.
Everyone is doing that. Even if the supply chains and relocation have is cut down by about 25%, you will find that Chinese economy will start shaking. And this will not happen overnight. This will happen over a period of time. It started. Plus the fact that till now, the Chinese economy was aided economy. Everyone wanted China to succeed and become its a manufacturing center. But now it's not so popular. People don't want to deal with China. They want to reduce their thing with China. So it's going to be an opposed economy, unaided and opposed economy.
Hmm.
Right? Everyone is saying let's cut from China. And of course it's geopolitics, it's assertion, everything. So it's going to have its effects. Another 4-5 years, you'll see the change. This change will happen in the next 4 to 5 years. Relocation, economic decline, right? Virus will take its toll. Population coming down. If there's not enough consumption within China, this dual circulation plan of Xi Jinping will go for a toss. Right? Now, all this is there. And you also add the geopolitics. They don't have any friends or allies.
Yeah.
Their best allies and friends are Pakistan and
North Korea.
North Korea. And then they have other issues. All non-Han people in China are really second-rate citizens, whether you call it Tibetans, Xinjiang, and Taiwan or Mongolia or Manchuria. So there's a problem, right? And they're building an oversized military. Where do you fund it from? How do you? I mean, it doesn't balance out. That's what I'm trying to put across. The whole thing is that then, after all this, let's look at the geopolitics and the military. There's a threat from Afghanistan into Xinjiang. Now you started, you know, wooing the Taliban, but that's a question mark by on its own kind. Okay, and so you can't rely on Taliban. It's too this thing. So the whole lot of instability there. If there's instability in Xinjiang, There's also some instability brewing up in Tibet. Because now Americans and India are making some gestures towards Tibet. So that means the one China principle is under attack. Taiwan itself is a problem, right? So on either side, the Western Pacific and this side, both sides are having geopolitical issues. So it's going to be a issue, right? That's my take. I don't think China will become the superpower it is meant to be. It is going to be a power, but but the problem lies here. This we are looking at a leadership which is very ambitious, which is driving itself to become takes China to become a superpower, but it can't. So what will it be? It will be troublesome,
Assertive.
assertive, aggressive, grabbing. All it'll we'll see it. So that's what we have to be aware of as Indians.
Interesting. I think I'd like to mention one thing. Excuse me. I'd like to mention one thing with regards to the BRI that you spoke, and they might have planned their expenses around the world with their BRI projects, looking at their projected revenues with full power economy and everything like that. So this is probably going to be one of the first times when their committed investments into a lot of the countries would not be possible, or they're going to cut short within their internal expenses for their people and push it out, which is going to create further trouble for them. So either
Yeah.
way, I mean, BRI is going to become a liability rather than an asset for the Chinese itself.
See, everything considered individually, they might be able to overcome. But when you consider all the effect of everything synergized
Together.
I don't think China will come out of it. What I'd like to say about the relocation XYZ and the ill will they've generated. For the first time, Mr. Tony Abbott, who was the ex-Prime Minister of Australia, and he heads a trade delegation to India recently, and he says, whatever the answer to almost every question about China is India. Right? Now, he says a swift deal between India and Australia would be an important sign of the democratic world's tilt away from China. So, he's taken the lead. Australia has taken the lead, and Australia is not bending to China. Now, if Australia and India start something, and there's a Pied Piper effect, others come. If Quad blossoms in the right manner, you'll see things happening in a different thing altogether. I think it's India's time of opportunity.
Shining moment, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's my last question. India doesn't need to take very, very heavy steps in literally wooing every company that is coming out of China into India. It's the big guys, and it's even just a few of them, which will send a clear message, I think, across the world, not just to China, and that's going to be relevant, but across the world, that India can stand up and become the power that it's wanting to become. How do you think we should go about that, sir?
See, again, I'll go back to what Mr. Tony Abbott said. Business and politics are always connected. So if you play your politics well, the business will flow.
Yeah.
It is not trying to woo people out of China to come and relocate. If the relations between India and Australia are good, Australia and India businesses will start flowering automatically, and relocation will happen automatically. Similarly, if India-Japan relations are good, the politics are good, things will start moving. Haven't we seen it? That's how Maruti came up.
Yes.
That's how Hyundai came up. Nissan came up. So many Japanese people have come up. Honda, XYZ. Same thing with the Koreans and Hyundai. The way Hyundai has come up. You have a strategic partnership with USA. Leverage it to economics. See, we need not woo anyone to come here and set up shop and all. We need to develop good politics, geopolitics. Right? I mean, we can copy the Chinese themselves.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we are democratic.
We
need to do things the democratic way. Right? And we are capable of doing it. And we have such soft power. or Indians abroad are such huge bank of software that we can exploit and utilize.
True. True.
So we need to do this, right? And the day we start doing it earnestly, you will see the shift happening. Again, people say it's only 1 year and no one has come, and 2 firms have come and 3.5 firms have come. No, I think people will come to India.
3 is big, sir. All the 3 are very, very big. So
Yeah, that apart from that, it's only 1 year, 1.5 years since this move has started.
yeah.
It'll take time. These things don't, what has been built over 20, 25, 30 years.
Exactly.
After all, China has started this process in 72, it's to 2020 to 50 years. It's not going to happen in 2 years that everyone will upstick from their income. It'll happen slowly, right? And you can't do it overnight. So it's going to take time. We have to be patient. We have to stick to our plan.
Exactly. Yes.
That's the most important thing. Yeah.
I think this has been a very fruitful discussion to realize, what, as I said in the beginning of this video, is what can be seen isn't always true. And one must be able to look between the lines, under the sheets, under the dust, as we've tried to do in this episode or in this video with regards to China. They have their issues, just like everybody else, but their projection of perfection is something which is, more and more people are now not believing that, and it's something that we also, as people who observe China and observe China's moves, must keep a note of and keep a track. The general has brought about very interesting factors about their demography, which is going to get affected because of their economy. It's going to get affected because of COVID, which is actually coming. There's like the genie in the bottle that they let loose. It's now coming back to bite them. And this was known to everybody, but they, of course, they evaded it for a long time, but it's there now. And they themselves are saying, yes, it's very bad. So apart from that, the leaderships, Communist Party's leaderships, to retain power, and again, I'm going to repeat the bottom line, that they rather be in power of not a superpower country, rather than lose power in a country which is going to become a superpower. So they're going to keep their seats together, and even if they need to destroy a certain wealth, which is something that we are seeing around us, they will do it. They're, I think, one of the biggest downfalls for the Chinese are going to be their overconfidence in their own systems to bounce back. I was reading a report in the morning that the Chinese economy hasn't actually opened up the way that they had projected in April. So things aren't looking that bright for the Chinese. And as the general mentioned, it's going to be the next 3 to 4 years when we'll be able to see what exactly is actually happening there, and how it'll open out into a full-fledged situation for the world to actually act against. Thank you, sir, for joining me for this wonderful discussion. Till next time, for another topic, another day. Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind.